Welcome everybody to Evie-cast. This is a new video podcast that we're doing with Team Evie to share stories with you of people we've helped in the charity, medical professionals, families who have experiences of baby loss or a poorly child in hospital. And we just wanted to raise awareness and shed a bit of light on lots of different people, jobs, situations that don't often get shared as much as they should. And in our first episode, I've chatted with Joe Hill, who is an incredible guy. He's really inspirational. And we chatted about his son Levi, his job as a paramedic, how he dealt with Levi's death, as well as looking after his family, and the creation of Levi's Loop, an unbelievable fundraising challenge that Joe took on to raise money for Team Evie and TASC, the ambulance service staff charity, all in memory and for the legacy of Levi. It's a really great chat. We cover lots of topics. There's emotion, laughter, and lots of information and things that I'm sure you haven't heard discussed before. So without further ado, here's the conversation, episode 1 of the Evie-cast with Joe Hill. Welcome everybody to episode 1 of the new Evie-cast that we're doing, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Joe Hill, who is an Evie hero. Thanks for joining us, Joe.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here on number 1.
Yes, our first man in, and really looking forward to speaking to you about everything that you've done. I'm sure it's going to be really inspiring to everyone. I think a good place to start is for me to hand over to you, really, and for you to tell us about Levi.
Yeah. So Levi's our little boy. He died last year in March. He was stillborn at 32 weeks. Very sudden. We didn't get any warning at all. And initially we didn't have any idea as to why. We just, my wife, also Joe, went to a routine Doppler appointment, and there was no heartbeat. And I was at home, just out walking the dog, and got the phone call. And thankfully, we don't live too far from where the appointment was happening, so we sprinted over and then headed through to Whitehaven for the scan that confirmed there was no heartbeat and that we'd lost him. We delivered a couple of days later there as well at Whitehaven, and the guys there were great. Oh, it was as minimally awful as it was ever going to be. The staff, definitely didn't make anything worse. But yeah, there's no way through that that's not unpleasant. They've got a little room there called the Bluebell Suite, which is specifically for people that have lost a child and stillbirth. And we got to spend the night there with him once he was delivered, and have a few days of kind of going back and forth and seeing him before he was finally shipped off for some investigations and then the funeral. So that's kind of the initial summary as to what happened.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
It's I know how difficult it is to speak about, and thank you so much for sharing. I've heard you speak before and read your posts about how amazing the staff were at looking after you, which is really lovely to hear. But it's almost impossible to put into words, isn't it? That heartbreak and the shock of that all happening.
Yeah. It was definitely a surreal time thinking about it, and it's got easier to talk about. I've very much made myself talk about it, because I know talking about stuff does make things better. I've always been an advocate for it, and just when it comes time to be in your turn, there's that initial resistance. I really did not want to be doing any talking about it initially, but I do know it helps, and I've got to be there for everyone else in the family that was going through stuff as well. And the last thing I wanted to do was to make things worse. So kind of had to force myself to an extent to start talking, to start thinking early on to how am I going to process this? How am I going to get into a state of mind where I'm not just broken, but I can actually help the rest of my family that are also going through all this as well. So, yeah, yeah.
So in the family, sorry, Joe. So in your family, there's your wife, Joe. You also have other children as well as
Yeah,
Levi as well.
girls, Kaylin and Charlie. At the time were no, it was March, so they'd been 5 and 3. Um, and then so young kids as well that were very much looking forward to having a little baby brother. So yeah, that brought up all sorts of other difficult things of helping young kids understand the concept of death. And then all the conversations that followed with them of like, are we going to die one day? Are they going to die one day? And some really heart-wrenching early days, as as anyone would expect, I suppose. But thankfully, we've come through it. I think we've come through it pretty much as well as we could have, which is a real positive thing to take away from it. I think kind of leaning into processing it, the support that we've got from you guys, support that we've got from our church and friends. It's we've come through. I think as minimally broken as it's possible to come through something like that. But it's like it's not something that ever leaves you. It's not something that that goes away. It's something that's just it's part of you now. There was a book actually that I can remember the guy's name. He's a comedian. He wrote A Heart That Works. He's been in a few films and stuff. I'm gonna have to Google his name now because it's going to bug me.
Oh, I know who you mean. And his little boy's called Henry. Is that
Yeah,
same
yeah,
guy? Yeah. I
yeah.
can't think of his name either, but
Sorry, whoever your name is. Anyway, he wrote he wrote The Heart That Works after his boy died, and I remember him describing like life afterwards and how it's you still have all your emotions. He described like the colours of the rainbow. You still got happy and sad and all the rest of it, but then there's just this band of black that's added kind of in there. This kind of underlying sadness that's not ever present, but it's it's just because it's part of life.
yeah.
And I remember reading that at the time and thinking like I can see what he means by that, and that you can carry on life. We're incredibly adaptable, and life can carry on, and you can still laugh and joke with your kids and colleagues at work and stuff. But it's there's no forgetting what happened, and I don't want to forget. That's the other element to it.
No, I heard on Radio 2 in the morning, they do the pause for thought
Yeah.
where different people are on. And there was a guy on last week, and it really stuck with me what he said. And he was talking about his dad and his grief and talking about that, laughing and maybe not feeling sad all the time. And should he be guilty about it? And then he looked into this dual grief model, I'm sure it was called, may have misquoted that, where it's saying your brain can do two things side by side, and one is trying to process the grief and deal with all that sadness, and the other is rejuvenating you and living.
Mm.
And it's a really interesting way to think about it, isn't it? It doesn't have to be all one way, that actually you can be dealing with that trauma and grief and feeling sad, but also you've got to live and rejuvenate yourself. That was a really interesting way of looking at it. So, in terms of you guys as a family, after everyone, I guess it's difficult to support everyone, isn't it? Because everyone is in a different place with it, especially children and adults. It's really difficult for everyone to cope together.
Yeah. It's kind of all a bit of a blur thinking back to it. Those kind of initial few weeks of just like you say, you're just a bit kind of zoned out, and you're kind of living because you have to. We're still, you're getting up, you're still eating breakfast, you're still doing things. Having kids kind of forces you to to carry on. They're incredibly resilient, and again, they've got those kind of two modes where almost everything's normal, and then they think about it, and then everything's not normal, and it kind of the normal moments that they have, it pulls you through in the sense they still want to play, they still want to scream and argue with each other.
Yeah.
Still want to watch TV, still want to do everything, and that kind of forces a bit of normality. Our church was incredible early on. We didn't have to do a thing. They just organised the food train, so evening meals just showed up at our door for a couple of weeks unprompted, and that was incredibly helpful. I think it is the little things that if you can kind of offload some of that burden of thought was incredibly helpful. Just having them show up with food, and that kind of you feel that support coming in, that everyone's just thinking about you, and as much as kind of it's in hindsight thinking back about it, like I say, it was all a bit of a blur at the time when you're processing stuff. But yeah.
Well, that's amazing. It's amazing you had that support, because
Yeah.
I think and one of the reasons we're doing this Evie-cast is that we want to share stories and speak to people who aren't heard that much. And I think I feel like my world completely changed in an instant when Evie died, that I view the world as a totally different place, and I can't explain it to someone in words. But I'm sure you understand, because you see the same world I do. But because others often don't understand it, sometimes that support isn't there, or people don't know that it's not just about saying things or promising things. And actually, it sounds amazing that those people that you had just showed up, I think is what you said, which is an amazing, thing.
Yeah, we were really fortunate that one of the ladies that goes to our church, Laura, she's the one that introduced us to you guys. She'd been through a similar process. They lost their daughter, and they didn't have a great experience, unfortunately, during the process. Not that you can have a good experience, but as far as staff interaction and that,
Yeah.
there was some issues there. So she was kind of a key figure in just organising stuff, of just like, right, like we've been here, we know what it's about, and just kind of rallied everything, and obviously got us in touch with you guys pretty early on. So I think that, like, whilst our church is great, that she was definitely, I can't underplay the supportive role that she had. And again, it's having someone that understands it, that's been through it, that kind of gets the mentality almost at the time. And yeah, I think this will be helpful, because I don't know about you, but one of the things that I found, because I've been open about talking about stuff, it's helped. But I think there's almost a barrier for people to have a conversation, because like, you don't know what to say to someone that's lost a child. It's a difficult, like, do people want to talk about it? Do they not want to talk about it? Like, I think there's that kind of social barrier where people are just really not sure what to do or how to approach it, because it's not something that you deal with in everyday life. Someone loses a grandparent, it's kind of, everyone gets how to talk about it, support it, but there's just that extra barrier almost.
I think because it's not the right order of life, is it?
No.
It's so wrong for everyone that people can't sort of compute it almost. But I always felt like people didn't want to say anything because they might upset me.
Yeah.
Even though the reality is you can't upset me any more than the fact that my daughter's died. It's not you that's going to upset me. It's my situation, and it's okay if I get upset or I feel sad about it, because of course I would. But that avoidance people have, or not saying your child's name.
Yeah.
I noticed that a lot in conversations, that people almost will go to say and then try and look for a way out of the sentence or a way out of the conversation immediately, because it might make me cry or something, which
it's similar experience that people just don't know. Again, like, before going through this, I wouldn't have known how to do. You try, like, it's a difficult thing to try and navigate, because it is just, like I say, it's so alien, and it's something that everyone is universally agreed that that's awful, and
Yeah.
there's no kind of ambiguity about it. Um, and yeah, it's a difficult thing to deal with. I think to an extent, I wouldn't say lucky, but because of my job, as I'm a paramedic, I've always described as we're kind of tragedy adjacent in the sense that we see awful things happen. We see other families or other people having horrible experiences of a whole variety, and so that kind of understanding of how bad life can get, it's kind of not your first exposure to it. And like for my wife, I think us going through what we did, it's kind of her first exposure to that. Oh, life can be this bad. Life can get down to this kind of a level. I know
Yeah.
I've heard people describe having kids that, normally before you have kids, you've got a scale of +10 happy to -10 happy. And then you have kids and that scale, all of a sudden it goes up to a +100 happy, but also -100 happy. And that kind of expansion of your scale of good to bad. I think when you get exposed to tragedies where you realize, oh, the scale doesn't stop at -100, it can go a decent way down. And I think being in the job that I am, I've had that awareness of like, oh, things can go very wrong very quickly and be so that it wasn't like an entire shift in worldview of like, bad things happen for no reason. It was I at least had that awareness. Um, and it just absolutely sucks when it's you that's going through it, and you never think it's going to be you. But I think that kind of shook my wife a little bit more. That expansion of how negative things can go, or how badly life can be, how bad
Yeah, I've
life.
never heard that before. That's a really interesting way of um, of looking at things. Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah. So I thought you mentioned about Laura and her introducing
Yeah,
you guys to us at Team Evie. I thought it was worth just touching on that a little bit. I saw a lovely quote that you put in some of your fundraising pages with your challenge, which we're going to come on to later, where you said Team Evie gave us a lifeline during our darkest days, which made me really proud to read that. But I just thought it was worth noting or talking about how through our charity we provided support.
yeah. So we got the peer support. So like obviously Joe had face-to-face kind of conversations and stuff with you, and it was incredibly helpful because just having someone to talk to about what's happened, someone that there's no, I don't know how to phrase it really. There's almost no kind of social politeness or expectation of you don't want to put people out, or you don't want to break down in front of people if it's you kind of normal friends and family. Or yeah, I don't quite know how to phrase it, but that barrier was not there. You've got someone that you know has been through something similar, that you don't have to perfectly articulate what you're going through in the
Yeah,
best way, and it's just you can say something that doesn't make sense really, but then you'll nod and be like, "Oh no, I get what you're saying." It's like, yeah,
yeah,
but the words didn't come out right, but I absolutely know what you're saying, and having that early on, it just is a way to vent, and yeah, just the way to help that, just how your brain's kind of restructuring everything, and having an output, and yeah, just another kind of positive influence inside was, yeah, it was really beneficial for us. And it's not something that you have a meeting and all of a sudden everything's better and you go out hopping and skipping, but it's
no,
yeah, it was really beneficial, yeah, especially for Joe. She was, because again, like obviously you add a bunch of stress into a relationship for any cause, and it can go one of two ways. The strain in the relationship can cause things to break, and put you close together. And I very much wanted this to bring us closer rather than have things break down. That's one of the other things I've seen in our job, that stuff like this can absolutely destroy people and destroy families.
yeah,
I was keen for that not to happen, and having her having an outlet that wasn't just to me, so she didn't feel like she was burdening me. was very beneficial. She could have someone that she could chat to, that she could let out everything she was feeling, if she didn't feel like she was putting any additional burden on anyone else, or on me, or in the relationship. So yeah, very grateful for that, and for you not telling her, yeah, the problem's all him, you should leave him.
Yeah, it's really lovely to hear that it made such a difference, and it's yeah, you can't replicate that, can you? I often have them conversations with people without realizing the amount of times over the last 10 years where I've had a long conversation with someone and thought, what a lovely guy. Like, he really seemed to understand things. That was really lovely. Like, he really got me, and he understood how it is. And then I find out months later that that person's had a child that's died. And you think, and it happens so often. I think that's why you got it. That's why there was such a level of understanding. And it's you can't replicate that at all.
Yeah. So again, like, that it happens, but I had friends that I didn't realize that had been through similar, as well. Like, not people that I interact with every day, but I think social media as well expands your kind of your current
Mm.
to much larger, which has got its pros and cons. But yeah, I had people get in touch with me that I had no clue that been through something similar, and it is just, again, you're aware before it happens to you. You know that it happens. You know it's something that can happen, but as far as how prevalent it is, it was the same with miscarriages. Before Levi, we had a miscarriage, and again, like, just even that whole conversation as to how frequently that happens, and that whole process and the grief with that. That's yeah, you don't really realize how common it is. Um, yeah. So it's always easier talking with someone that has that level of understanding and gets it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
So we will get onto your challenge in a moment, which is incredibly inspiring. But before we do, because you took on your amazing challenge for Team Evie and also for the ambulance staff charity. You mentioned about your work as a paramedic,
yeah,
but I know from again reading lots of your coverage that you did of your challenge that it's something that's a passion of yours in your job to look after people and their mental health and how the amazing work that charity does.
yeah. So I've been an advocate for mental health for a good long while. I'm a staff wellbeing champion at work, which is nothing fancy. It just means that you are involved in some meetings, and you try and be approachable to other people that might be going through stuff or not, and try and provide support in that way. But obviously, we're exposed to a lot of stuff, and people are, we're human at the end of the day, and generally speaking, people don't always have the best processing by default to how to deal with something really traumatic. So there's plenty of people, staff, that when you go to something very traumatic, don't deal with it, in the most productive way.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, the culture's really changed. So I've been in the ambulance service now for like 15 years, and initially it was very much a lot of bravado, just like, it's just something you deal with it, you carry on. You don't need to talk about it. If you need to talk about it, then maybe should you really be a paramedic if you can't handle like this kind of exposure to stuff? And thankfully, that's changed a lot, and there's a lot more uh, expectation that talking about it is good. And I've very much tried to shift the culture where I work, that it's routine to talk about stuff. There's none of that bravado that goes with it, and that it's kind of trying to normalize the processing that you go through when you go to something really traumatic, um, and to try and normalize the kind of the support that the ambulance service has in place. The ambulance staff charities is a good one for staff burnout. Can be quite common, with just the lack of sleep shifts and the workload and exposure to stuff. And they do a great. They provide a lot of support for people that are going through burnout. I had a couple of friends that suffer with that. I kind of reached out to TASC about, and yeah, I wanted to try and capture my colleagues' attention, with what happened with Levi, but also kind of blended in with mental health. That like, look, I'm talking about that. I don't want to be talking about this, but I'm talking about it because talking about it is good. It does help. And trying to be an example that if I can talk about what I've been through, then maybe you can talk about that bad job that you went through the other week, or you can talk about with you're struggling with sleep because you're remembering a bunch of different stuff, or you're trying to process an incident that you've been to, or just the weight of having going to so much for so long, and kind of try and open up the conversation at work about that as well. And that's been really good. And TASC, they've got resources and stuff available. And it's great having an organisation that is just there for ambulance staff. Like we were saying, that talking to people that get it, that have been through something similar,
yeah,
really beneficial. And one of the things with emergency, like pre-hospital emergency work, there's almost like the in crowd in the sense that if you worked in it, there's that mindset shift of like, oh, I get it, I understand what you're coming from, what you're going through. Whereas you can hold a conversation with someone that's maybe not, and it can there'll be that little bit. There's a few barriers. You need to explain a bunch of other stuff that goes along with it. Whereas someone that's been in the situations that you have and kind of understands the work and how it operates, it is just that barrier's gone. It's just straight to the conversation. So that's really beneficial as well.
Amazing. Yeah. So, which brings us nicely on to your challenge, because to support both charities, you came up with Levi's Loop, which is, I'm going to say, impossible, but turned out to not be. But do you want to tell us about Levi's Loop and how you came up with the idea? Because it's pretty incredible that before you even started to think about doing that, I think.
Yeah, so like I said, pretty early on, I knew that I needed something to focus on. And I do a bit of cycling, got a few friends that I cycle with, and a friend of mine, Rick, he lives down in Manchester. So we don't ride all the time together. And when we do manage to kind of get away from families to go for a ride, typically what we do is we'll go, right, well, we've got a day to ride, so we're going to ride for the day, and we'll go out really early and we'll ride for as long as we can and get back. So we get like 12 hours of riding in together, because it's like we're away for a day regardless. So rather than going a little 4-hour ride and then wave each other by, it's like, maximize the time we're out. So we've done a little bit of riding, doing some longer stuff. And like I say, after Levi, I knew I needed something to focus on for myself that was going to be good for my mental health, and to help me process, so I can be in a better place to help my family and take up any of their burden that I could. And the idea kind of came to me pretty quickly. Like I said, I think within the first couple of weeks, that I wanted to create a lasting memory of Levi. And years earlier, I'd done something called the Bob Graham Round, which is a fellering challenge up here in the Lakes, quite famous. And you set off from Keswick, and the challenge is to get to these 42 mountain summits that this guy Bob Graham originally did, and back to Keswick inside 24 hours. And you can plan the route. It doesn't matter which way you go. It doesn't matter what time you start. It's all self-organized. It's not an organized event. That's the challenge, is to get from here to each of these 42 places and back inside 24 hours. And you have to have someone there that's witnessed you did it. You can't just say you did it. And there's a club if you get into under 24 hours. And I'd done that when I was into Felwyn, going back a long time now. I did back in 2013. And that kind of format came to mind with the challenge, because that's, this guy Bob Graham, he's got such a legacy from this challenge now. It's loads want to go do. It's like a benchmark for fell runners that if you can get around that in under 24 hours, you're pretty strong, and it's something that people focus on for a good long while, or try multiple times if they're unsuccessful. And it's an incredible day to be the one person that all these other supporters, they're just trying to focus on getting you going, keeping you in front of the other. and it was an incredible memory that really came to mind after Levi. And because I've been into cycling, because well, running gets harder the older you get, and cycling's a bit kinder on your knees. But cycling doesn't really have that kind of a challenge. So that's kind of where I thought that it'd be great to have something like that could then be a memorial for Levi, and something that other people go do. And being a paramedic, I thought that, well, what would be a good challenge to kind of tie in with everything. I thought, okay, well, how far can it be to ride to every ambulance station in Cumbria? And for good measure, I wanted to be something that scared me, that was hard not to be scary, that I needed to focus on. Go out and do, in a couple of weeks' time. It was like, cause I wasn't super fit, but I was relatively active, being out on the bike. I thought it needs to be something that scares me enough that I need to train hard for it, and that can be impressive enough that's worthy of Levi's legacy. So decided to, rather than just ride on the flattest route I could find between all the ambulance stations, to throw in the hardest hills I could. So the kind of the format of the challenge is to go from Cockermouth, which is where I live, to every ambulance station in Cumbria, to the top of Hard Knot Pass, which is kind of considered one of the hardest climbs in the country. Up the Struggle, which is in Ambleside, which is another. They do a lot of hill climb kind of competitions on it, because that's another really, really tough climb. Great Dun Fell, which is the highest climb in the UK, the highest paved road. And then Newlands Pass, which takes you over past Ranadale Knots, and because of that Bluebell Suite at Whitehaven, they have a picture of the bluebells at Ranadale Knots, so it always reminds us of Levi. It's somewhere we go to kind of when we're feeling, we want to have, we feel that a little bit closer to him, and almost a memorable place for him. So that was kind of how the structure developed pretty early on. The concept was there, and then having it as a focus, because obviously I've got to work out how to get from Flimby Ambulance Station to Dizzington to the next one, to all the different ones, all the little route planning bits of deciding what route to go on was really beneficial for me, just in moments where the grief's more present and stronger, having something that you can do that feels productive, because I'm building this challenge, I'm kind of working out the details of it, but also a way of still feeling close to Levi. It's not just, I need to go and be productive, I'm going to go and do this job or that job. It's a way to still be close, and have him, hold him present in my mind, and be productive. That's kind of what the challenge was, and it was as much a processing tool for me for grief as it was a physical challenge, and it's been an immeasurable benefit having that to focus on. And again, the then prompt to talk about it was like, I'm going to do this challenge, I'm going to raise some money, which also means I'm going to have to talk about that I'm doing this challenge, that I'm raising money, and then talking about it means I'm talking about Levi, I'm talking about what happened. And it was hard initially, but it gets easier. I enjoy talking about him as well. It's like it keeps him real, keeps him present. Really happy.
And great doing something like that that's named Levi's Loop. That I don't know if it happens for me with Team Evie. It's almost become, people just say Team Evie every day, and every time I think, there she is, you've just said a name, that actually it becomes such a thing that this big challenge is called the Levi's Loop, that people suddenly are so much more comfortable without realizing it, constantly saying his name to you.
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, the dream of the challenge is something that kind of it goes beyond just my attempt or me doing it, because it's something I'll end up doing multiple times. The way of remembering. Hopefully, it's something that my kids will want to do when they're growing up, maybe over a few days, not in a wanna. But the goal would really be for it to become something like that Belgrade. It's a benchmark for cyclists to go. People show up to support them and focus on getting them around, and in that way it acts as that memorial for him. So that was a lot of the driving behind it initially, early on.
So to put the stats in here because you're very modest about it, and so everybody knows actually how huge this is. You talked, you casually said hard knot and the struggle. So the challenge was 290 miles of cycling
Yeah.
in the 24 hours as your target, which included 7,500 meters of climbing, which, when you put it into context, that Scafell Pike is just under 1,000 meters. You've cycled up the highest mountain in the country over 7 times during the day, and you actually completed the challenge in 20 hours of cycling. So I know it was 21 hours and a bit, all in, because you needed to stop at each ambulance station. But that is incredible, Joe. When you analyze those stats, I don't know how you said it was kinder on your knees, but I don't know how on earth you did it. Although I can imagine that Levi had a lot to do with it.
Oh yeah.
But what an incredible achievement for you personally, for Levi and his legacy, and it inspired me. I'm sure it's inspired lots of people. You got a lot of coverage and a lot of people sponsored you for it. I'm sure you're incredibly proud, but if you're not, you really, really should be.
Yeah, it's been a surreal experience, and the day itself was incredible because like I had people to ride with me. We broke it down into 4 legs, and I had friends join me for various legs and guys from my cycling club, and I even had strangers, people that I'd never met, because I put some posts out about trying to get support riders and trying to partly to get the awareness up of it, to drive some sponsorship, and also to increase the awareness of this challenge and encourage some of the people to think about having a go at it. And I had that was the great thing about the Bob Graham, is that you go and support strangers doing it because you knew what it was about, you knew you wanted to do it, and it was really fun. It is really fun supporting someone on something big like that, where it's just you really are there to try and do everything you can to get them around. And it was the same for me on the day with Levi's Leap. Everyone was just as focused as they could be on getting me whatever it was that I needed to keep going, to be as supportive as they could to help me get round. And it's an incredible experience being that person. It's almost like the Tour de France. So you've got your one rider that's going to try and get the fastest time, and the whole team is built around supporting, keeping that person moving, getting them water and shielding him from the wind. And that's what I think. I think it could be something really special in cycling, because you go doing an event, you don't have that same experience unless you have built a team around you.
Yeah.
So it is. Yeah, it's a special. It was a really special day, and just even the guys from my cycling club early on, guy Chris and his wife Jen they literally sat in a van the full 24 hours of just having all my supplies in the van, and drove around and met me, and they loved it. They loved it as well. Like I wanted to schedule them in a break or be able to swap them off so that another team, so they didn't have to do it, and they were just laser focused. Like they want to be there the whole 24 hours.
Yeah, brilliant.
Everything they could. And yeah, they love it. So they tell me they loved it. Hopefully,
yeah. Maybe it's a different story behind your back, eh?
Yeah.
So I guess one thing I wanted to ask, which might tie everything up when we think about everything we've chatted about in terms of your experiences with Levi and coping with everything as a family and developing this challenge as a focus for you. I was interested in your mindset during those 24 hours as to, it is amazing having all those people around you and doing all of those things to support you, but it's still you pedaling for 20 hours and in your own head, you having to cope with it. I just wondered what it was like for you and what mindset you got into that created such a strength. And
it's one of those things, like the weather turned on the day. It'd been glorious sunshine, so it was the 14th of June that I did it, and we had all those thunderstorms roll through in the morning. Thankfully, it went pretty torrential early on, and it was thunder and lightning as I was picking some friends up from the train station, and that kind of eased off a bit, which was great. But I very much had the mentality of, like, even if it's chucking it down, thunder and lightning for the whole 24 hours. Even if no one else shows up, it's like I'm going, and nothing's getting me off the bike. So, so it was very much the commitment to getting round pretty early on was that never wavered. And obviously Levi was there with me for that, and the support of my family. And I kind of held it together pretty well emotionally. Most of the way around, like the emotions were well controlled, and there was, what you were doing, but it's actually such a big task that you're going to go do, that you've got to break it down into small little chunks. Like, okay, let's get to this point next. Make sure you're eating enough. Make sure you're drinking enough. So you've got lots to think about. And I stayed pretty focused the whole way around through the night, and I felt awful through the night. I was really nauseous because trying to eat so much food, and obviously riding through the night, and your body's not really ready for that. And I remember the kind of moment that I'd had in my head the whole time was the top of Newlands Pass, because it's the last climb up, and after you get over there, it's like I know I can crawl back to Cockle. I know once that's done, if I can get over there, then I'm definitely home. Then I have definitely done it, because it is a roll downhill and then a pedal back into Cockermouth, and it's nothing that I can't do. But it's like, what will my legs be like when I get to this last 25% ramp? Will I have to get off? Will I collapse? Will I just curl up into a ball and cry? Or will it take me 3 hours just to get from Keswick to the top? Or didn't know. And the plan had always been to kind of keep as much in the tank as I could, to just, like, I'm not going crazy, I'm just trying to ride nice and steady and not go too hard. And then the plan was, like, I knew whatever I have left in the tank is just coming out on that climb. And I remember coming out stair and just hitting that climb, and just that tunnel vision just came, and the emotions all welled up, and I was holding back tears, grinding up this climb. It's something I'll remember forever. And then my wife Jo and the kids were waiting for me up there and cheering me on. Yeah, sorry, I don't mind crying in public. It's it was incredible.
No, it's I guess, as we've said throughout this chat, we talk about, people might feel awkward. What if I make him cry? But why would you not, when you've been through everything? And
good tears. It's such a powerful memory, and that I'll not forget that for a long time. And the kids cheering me on at the top, and then meeting up with Jo, and then Jo rode back in with me to Cockermouth. Yeah, so that was, like I said, emotions were well controlled right up until that climb. It was just everything came right up.
Yeah, wow.
So and luckily a friend of mine caught it on video, so you can see me kind of collapse at the top, and I like watching back and remembering how I felt. That was the peak emotion on the challenge, and everything had just been thinking about getting to that point, really.
That's amazing. And again, what a phenomenal effort, so well done, Hugh, and probably more so Levi, for all this inspiration. I know it's like the amount, whenever I'm doing anything, training, challenges, I chat away to Evie, or sometimes shout, "Come on, Evie!" When I'm running. People must think, what on earth is that man doing? But it's incredible the power that you get from it, isn't it? To
very much
to do when you've got nothing left, that you find a bit of power from somewhere.
Yeah. So
to finish off, I thought about how we could frame all these chats that we have, and I really focused on, when we went through everything with Evie, we focused on our little motto of always moving forwards. It really got us through so many days, and thinking about what was the positive thing today. Let's focus on positivity, and having that motto almost. So I thought I would ask you whether it's a motto or a mantra or advice for other people who might face similar challenges to you. Do you have that kind of motto that you try and live by, or you like to think about?
Yeah, there was I can't remember where I heard it, and it turns out I've been I've been misquoting it to a certain extent, but I heard someone say that if you have a sufficient why, you can endure any how. in the sense that if you have a purpose that is big enough, and you've got something that you want to achieve, you want to do, you want to accomplish, that the how of it doesn't matter. They're just obstacles in the way that you'll find a way through, and that's always stuck in my head. That yeah, if you have a big enough purpose, that the how of it doesn't, you'll find a way through it. And that was again in my mind pretty early on, that I needed that, some purpose, something to pull you through. Because when you don't want to carry on, it's like, early on I didn't always want to train, I didn't always want to get out of the bed, I didn't want to. There were some really hard interval sessions I had to do. I'd literally wake up off night shift and then jump on the bike, and there was some unpleasantness in the training side of things. But if you have that goal and that purpose, it's just, it doesn't matter how hard it is. It was just like, well, this is what needs to happen, so this is what's happening, because I need to be ready for that. I need to be there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's very much been my something that's really helped me, and that's a mentality I try and hold to, that if you've got a purpose, then yeah, it's there's no stopping you really, if it's a big enough purpose. So yeah, that's one of the things I like. That
Brilliant.
Yeah, trying to stay positive, because dwelling on the negative just makes everything worse. So yeah, trying to be as positive.
Yeah, that's true. And a lovely way to end, because when you think about, as long as you have a why, and what more of a amazing why than Levi for everything that you've done. And thank you so much for your support for Team Evie, and what an inspiration you are. Thank you so much. That's a really inspirational chat, and I'm sure everyone will enjoy listening to you. So thanks, Joe.
Thanks very much for having me. It's been great, and sorry that it's a bit snotty.